I'm gonna be attempting to read my October TBR and finish it all up so that I have some great books to talk to you guys about. But first, we need to review some of the books that I recently finished. So let's flash back to a couple weeks ago where I talk about some of my recent reads. I actually just finished a book. Let me show you guys the book that I just finished. This is it. This is her. I am absolutely still processing this beautiful masterpiece. I did cry, and let me tell you, I just do not remember the last time I physically cried at a book. I know I've gotten emotional and a little teary-eyed at some of my past reads, but this one genuinely had tears coming out of my eyes. When a book moves you that much, and it's literally words on paper, you're just reading them, when you're so moved to produce actual tears, there's nothing more beautiful than that. And as a reader, that's something you strive for. At least for me it is. Obviously, I rated it 5 stars because when a book makes you feel like that, you can't really rate it lower, in my opinion. This book is absolutely beautiful. I don't even want to start talking about it because I feel like I still need to process it. I finished it maybe 10 minutes ago. This was the October pick for my book club that I do with some of my friends, and we're going to be discussing that maybe in a week. So I do thankfully still have some time to process before then. Let me just tell you, if you haven't read this book, definitely read it. It is a World War II historical fiction novel about 2 sisters, and I'm really just gonna leave it at that, even though it is so much more. I am going to be moving on to The God, or what is it? Yeah, The God of the Woods. This is a beautiful cover. I actually picked this up via audiobook. I picked this physical version up from my library yesterday, and I started the audiobook earlier today. So I'm only about 5% in. It's a thriller mystery about a teenager who gets kidnapped from a summer camp. And I'm a huge fan of summer camp settings. So really, if your book is taking place at a summer camp, whether it's a romance, whether it's historical fiction, thriller mystery, I'll probably read it just because I'm such a sucker for that setting in particular. And this is thriller mystery, so of course that's going to be great. And I don't know much more besides that. There are multiple POVs already from what I've read. And this book is kind of long. It's 500 pages. And for a thriller mystery, that's a bit long, but I'm gonna stick it out. I do also want to jump into another book right now. I just like to read different books at the same time, and I want to pick up Billy Summers by Stephen King. I have never read a Stephen King book ever, so this would actually be my first. I bought this probably over a year ago. It's been sitting on my TBR for a while, and this actually made it onto my October TBR, so of course I want to read it, I want to prioritize it, and I'm just feeling the Stephen King vibes finally. And again, absolutely perfect for the fall time. So this is going to be my next read. I'm literally going to start it right now. Just from kind of looking at it quickly, the font is kind of small, at least maybe compared to what I was just reading, but that's okay. We're gonna try it. It is about a hitman for hire who wants to put that behind him, wants to retire, but he has one last job, and as we all know, in crazy fiction books, stuff happens. Not the first sentence literally being Billy Summers, I guess, is our main character, and he's reading Archie's Pals and Gals. Those are my favorite graphic, they're not graphic novels, they're comic books. Those were my favorite growing up. I already love it. Let me show you. I'm not messing around when I say I love Archie's comics. They're these ones. If you guys have seen Riverdale, they're about this. I literally have 2 boxes of these because whenever my mom would go to Vaughn's and I would go with her when I was younger, I would beg her for some of these and I would not leave the store without one. So now I have a ton, and I just recently brought them to my apartment because they used to live at my parents' house, but now they're with me and we are reunited, and I just had to show you guys what Archie's Pals and Gals is referring to. Literally been 2 seconds, and I am not a fan of how Betty and Veronica were already sexualized by a male. That hurt a little bit, but I mean, interesting, I guess. Billy Summers, our main characters, just met these 2 other guys, and they're the ones that made the comment, and I'm interested to see who these 2 men are, given the context that Billy is a hitman. Are these people he's trying to hurt, or are these people that hire him? Still reading Stephen King's Billy Summers. It's been low-key 3 or 4 days since the last clip, and I feel like that's a little bit longer than usual for me to read a book. I can see why. I did not expect this book to be going in the direction that it is. I feel like the main premise of the book is maybe 30% of it, and then the rest is like something you just would not guess. I mean, it makes sense still, but like, I don't know. I'm literally have maybe less than 100 pages left, so I have like this much left and I've read this much. Right now I'm probably sitting at like a 3.5 star rating. Obviously I haven't read the end, so I don't really know how it's going to wrap up. I did not expect this to go in the direction that it went. Yeah, I'm just kind of like shocked still. Like I don't know what I expected. It just was so random. I have also been reading The God of the Woods, and I feel like a big criticism with this book, because it is a thriller mystery, is that it's not super thrilling, and I will agree with that. I feel like it's more on the mystery side for sure. It's not very thrilling at all because I'm not at the edge of my seat. A lot of the chapters are kind of almost like a character study. We have like probably 7 different characters that we get like their point of view, and I think that's interesting. I am liking it. I'm not docking this book at all for that, because it is a different take on this storytelling aspect, and I don't see it very often. So I am interested, I am intrigued. It's keeping my attention. I'm not at the edge of my seat, and it's not the typical thriller mystery that I go for, but I have seen lots of criticisms because of it, and I won't criticize it because of it. I kind of like it. I like that it's a little bit different. It is a little bit slower paced than your like fast paced thrillers that you're probably used to, what I'm probably used to, so it is a little bit of a difference. I'm about maybe 40% through this one now. I figured I want to listen to it via audiobook just because it seemed like a good one to listen to. I will say I'm so happy I have a physical version, because if I didn't, I feel like I would be very lost, just because like I mentioned, there's probably like 7 or 8 different points of views. So I like going back to the physical copy and being like, wait, what name was mentioned? Okay, whose point of view is this? You know, kind of clarifying that stuff. These are kind of the 2 books that I'm reading at this moment. I do want to move on to a little cutesy romance, and that's probably going to be Chestnut Springs. I think I'm on Powerless, which is the 3rd book, and I also have Powerless, the fantasy book by Lauren Roberts, on my TBR, so I have lots of good books coming up. Hoping to finish Billy Summers low-key today, that way I can give you guys kind of my final thoughts. I will continuously keep kind of reading this one at a slower pace, but I am going to be starting a new book soon. Oh, the struggle. So yesterday, almost fell. Yesterday, I ended up finishing Billy Summers by Stephen King. I think I settled on like a 3.5 star rating. I enjoyed it in the end. I feel like the ending especially was good. Once I was like thinking about it as a whole, I liked it, but I feel like during it, while I was reading it, wasn't my favorite thing ever. I'm still interested to read other Stephen King books and just see like what that's like, but this one is probably not my favorite book ever. Would I recommend it? 3.5 rating is still really good, and one that I would typically say like go ahead and read it, because that's pretty high. But definitely check your trigger warnings. There are some very tough topics to read about that I think some people would like maybe like a heads up on, so maybe check the trigger warnings. But if you're still like okay with reading about that, then definitely pick it up. I don't know, I'm interested now to read more of like his horror selection, so that's kind of what I'm gonna go and move towards next. But I do have 11/22/63 sitting on my TBR cart staring at me, and I don't think that one's horror. That one's more like sci-fi time travel, which I'm not the biggest fan of either. So I don't know, we'll see where I go in this little Stephen King journey. This morning I was trying to decide like what I wanted to read next, and I'm basically my TBR. I have Powerless by Elsie Silver. I have Powerless by Elsie Roberts. I can't speak. Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I did state yesterday that I think I was gonna move towards like a little bit of romance. This one's like fantasy with a romance subplot. But then I also picked up Wayward, which I think is out in my living room because I was going to read it. So I think I'm gonna pick up this one and Wayward and just kind of switch on and off and see like which one like I like more, which one I read faster. But I think I want to start both just because I do like to read 2 different books at the same time. These are both on my October, we're in October, my October TBR, so it'll be perfect because I get to kind of hopefully make some progress on that. I'm very interested to read this. Even just reading like the little synopsis, I'm already a little confused, but it is intriguing. Only thing is I wish the names are Peyton and Kai, and I don't know, for me I think Peyton's the boy, Kai is the girl, but no, that's not how it is. Peyton is the girl and Kai is the male, so it's gonna be kind of hard for me. I have to like rewire my brain to think of them opposite. I want the girl's name to be Kai and her be the princess. Like I just wish the storyline was told like roles reversed, but again, that's only from reading literally this little information. And so we're gonna actually read it and see how I feel about it. The thing is, I did pick it up and the font is kind of small, so I'm like, oh, I don't know about that, but I'm gonna try it out, see how interesting it is, like especially like the first 20 pages. There's a map for every girl who has ever felt powerless. I'm only about 10 pages in, but I honestly feel pretty comfortable already. It's surprisingly not super like hard to follow, which is always a great surprise, and I'm not having as much difficulty differentiating between Hayden being a girl and Kai being a guy, since it's already like very clear from the beginning. And I do like just the initial premise that the book is giving. I feel like it's already kind of laying out the differences between the ordinaries and the elites. The elites have powers that this illness, the plague, gifted to them, and the ordinaries are just like what it sounds like, are ordinary. And our, I'm assuming, main character Payton, who goes by like Pay or Payton, she is pretending to have powers, pretending to be a sidekick, even though she's just ordinary. She doesn't have any powers, and I guess later on her and our Prince Kai are going to meet and probably stir up a little bit of a romance. So I am very interested to read about that. That's like what's really intriguing me the most. And I'm excited just to see everything about it. Like, how do they meet? What's their banter like? What's the romance like? Is it believable? How fast does it move? Everything and anything. So we are going to put in some work and continue reading so that I can hopefully get to that. I don't know how much I'm gonna end up reading of this today because I just started. And like I mentioned, I'm 10 pages in. But the chapters are very short, which I love that. That's like the best thing you can do because it really just keeps you motivated to continue reading and you don't get bored like mid-chapter. Alrighty, I'm coming at you with a couple of reading updates. It's been quite a few days since my last update, and that was mostly because I went out of town this last weekend to Palm Springs because it was my sister's bachelorette weekend, and I literally got like one clip the entire trip and I really didn't read much, so there was no update then. But since then, I have finished The God of the Woods. If you have not read this book, basically a teenager goes missing at a summer camp. She's the daughter of like a wealthy family. And so the world kind of stops there. And we have multiple POVs throughout this book. We have her mother, we have camp counselors, we have police investigators, we have one of her camp friends. So multiple POVs, and I definitely needed the book to kind of navigate who is who and whatnot. And basically, I will not say that this is a thriller. It's more so a mystery because it is a lot slower paced than like a thriller should be, in my opinion. So I will give it its mystery title and genre. I do think it was a great mystery if we're just thinking, you know, in mystery terms, because it was very solid. I did think it was a little slow. I don't know if that's just preference or if the book is actually just slower paced because it's a lot more detailed than I prefer. So with that out of the way, I did end up rating it 3.5 stars because the ending honestly was pretty good. Like I was getting fed up with this book and I just needed it to end. But then once I finally got to the ending and like the mystery was solved, I was like, oh, like this was actually a good book. So those are my thoughts on God of the Woods. It is very highly rated right now and super popular. If you're not a fan of slower paced, longer, detailed mystery books, then you probably won't like this. On the other hand, I've also been reading Powerless, which I believe I showed you guys. I'm now about 70% through this book, so I'm not done yet, but I actually am really enjoying this. It's a fantasy with a romance subplot. The romance is definitely giving. My biggest kind of issues with this book definitely line up with the fact that it's eerily familiar to the Hunger Games like series and books and movies, to the point where I'm like, I feel like the author could have made different decisions. For example, there's the trials that are very much like the actual Hunger Games. There's the different classes, like socioeconomic classes. the weapon that our female main character chooses to, like, it's just very, very eerily familiar, which the love triangle, like there's just so many things that even now I'm like seeing even more. I just don't think it had to be that similar. I do get, you know, finding inspiration from other works, but I feel like there were many things that could have been different that would have made this book just as strong. Regardless, I am very much enjoying it. There have been a couple jaw-dropping moments where I was like not expecting whatever happened. And like I mentioned, I'm 70% through, but I am very much enjoying this so far. In other news, I had my book club last week and we read The Nightingale. All right, giving you guys a bit of a different angle just to change things up, but in the book club that I had last week with some of my friends, we read The Nightingale, and we chose our new book for November, and it is actually The Night We Lost Him by Laura Dave, which is really funny because I picked this up from the library also last week, maybe a week and a half ago, and I had it on hand already, and it's very short, nice little thriller mystery, so I'm gonna definitely be reading this soon because of course I have my book club and I want to make sure that it's read for those purposes. But it was just so funny that I already had it on hand and I was already planning on reading it. This is a new release. I believe it came out beginning of September. This is Laura Dave, who also wrote the book The Last Thing You Told Me, which is a Reese's Book Club pick. So I'm very excited to read this and very interested to see how I feel about her writing. I did really like her previous book that I have read from her, and it's just been a long time since I've read any of her work. I don't even know if she'd had a book in between then. And then in other news, I am watching The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix, which if you like spooky, scary movies, you'll love this show. Like, it's genuinely kind of terrifying, which I did not expect. I like scary movies, but this one, like the jump scares, the plot, very, very good. The cinematography, chef's kiss. In line with that, I was at Barnes & Noble yesterday and I took a picture of this book and sent it to my boyfriend because we're watching the series together. And I just took a picture and sent it to him and he was like, oh, do you want it? Like, it can be your little like Halloween spooky gift. And I was like, yes, do I want it? I was able to get it. It's The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, and it's his introduction by series editor Guillermo del Toro, which I did not know he was a series editor. He is one of my favorite like creatives. I don't know if he's like a director, an animator, or all of the above, but he was born in Guadalajara, Mexico, which he is Mexican. So I really love that about him. He's like an Academy Award winner, Oscar winner, and I very much admire and love his work. So I had no idea that he was even involved in The Haunting of Hill House, and the show itself is really, really good. And there's like an introduction in this book by him, so very much looking forward to reading that. And then of course the copy itself is so freaking beautiful. It's a Penguin classic, or like Penguin horror book by the Penguin Publishing House. So just very happy that I was able to get my hands on this. I told my boyfriend we can popcorn read this together because my sister told me a funny story about her and her boyfriend doing that with a book. And I was like, popcorn reading? Like, I have not done that since elementary school. So I told my boyfriend that, and he was like, sure, you can read and I'll eat the popcorn. And I was like, not the point, but I get it. That's all the bookish news that I have for now. But like, oh, actually I do have 3 other books that I bought. So give me 1 sec. Right, we're back. I actually bought 3 other books because I think Target had like a buy 2 get 1 free deal like a week or 2 weeks ago, and so I got 3 books. First one being You with a View by Jessica Joyce. This author has been everywhere recently, and this book actually came out a year or 2 ago. Since this book, she's had like a book or 2 released. I've just heard so many great things about this author and this book specifically. Most of what I've heard is that it is a romance, it's a rom-com, it's a Berkeley romance, which I love this publishing house. I've just heard that there's a lot of like emotional depth and like connection, and I love that in my romance books. I love romance books with a bit of substance. So I don't know, this just like feels like it's in my wheelhouse, and I just cannot wait to read it. It's been on my TBR for a while. I've had it on my like to buy list for a long time, and finally I ripped off the band-aid and said I'm gonna buy it and I'm gonna read it soon. So if you have read this book, let me know how it is, because I actually have fairly decent expectations for it. Next are 2 books in a series. So I think I said I was going on a book buying ban like in my last or 2 videos ago, because I did a book haul and book shopping, and I was like, okay, book buying ban being implemented. These don't count because they're books in a series, so I'm just continuing the series, so I don't count these 2. And it was buy 2 get 1 free, so I'm still in compliance. besides this one, which technically my boyfriend bought me. So anyway, just wanted to put that out there. This is Fuel the Fire by Kristen Becker Ritchie. This is part of the Addicted series. I did not know that this is a Rose and Connor book. Kiss the Sky is Rose and Connor's like POV book as well, and that is probably one of my favorites in the entire series by far. And it's crazy because going into it, I did not think I was gonna love that book the way that I do, and I did not think Rose and Connor would be two of, if not my favorite characters in the whole series. So I am very, very pleasantly surprised. Now I cannot wait to read this, and just look at the freaking cover. If this is not giving fall, like it literally is. So I probably need to read this like this month or next month. I just love this series, cannot say that enough. Next up is Hopeless by Elsie Silver. This is Chestnut Springs. I think this is the last book in the series, so I have them all now, but I'm on the third book, which is Powerless, which I'm also planning on reading this month because it's on my TBR. That's just a little reading update, letting you guys know what I'm into. I'm gonna go back to reading Powerless, and then hopefully I can finish this up soon and give you guys my final thoughts. So I ended up finishing Powerless last night. I think you guys saw my reaction. I feel like the end was really, really good. Overall, I had a really fun time reading this. I will say, again, lots of similarities to The Hunger Games, but I mean, The Hunger Games is a great book series. It's not a bad thing about it, it's just I wish there were more original elements in a way. Regardless, debut novel, very impressive, entertaining. I rated it 4 stars. And then I started Powerless by Elsie Silver same night last night, and I'm already 200 pages in, about almost halfway through the book. I am annotating it because my goal is to annotate the entire series, and I already love this book. I love the characters. I feel like I knew from the first book, from Flawless, the very first book in the series, that this was probably going to be my favorite book just because of the little tidbits and hints that we got of Sloane and Jasper. It's like getting an inkling that Jasper was sort of like a tortured soul type of person where lots of things have gone wrong for him, and it's this whirlwind romance that's from a childhood best friend that's just gonna like not save him but help him in a way and aid him. I already am eating it up, like I couldn't put it down. I am gonna be kind of busy today, so I don't think I'll be able to read much more. I do want to savor it in a way, so I am glad that I have to like forcefully take a break because I feel like I would finish this all today if I had time. Gonna try to focus on my little October TBR because there's still probably 3 or 4 books on there that I haven't read, and the month is kind of getting close to the end. I feel like Billy Summers, Powerless, and the audiobook I was listening to, God of the Woods, kind of took me longer than usual to read, and I mean I ended up rating those like 3.5, 4 stars. That's not terrible. When mixed in with The Nightingale, which was a 5-star read, I can see why those took me longer to get through because obviously they were not 5 stars. Maybe I was in a bit of a book hangover after reading The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, which was beautiful. So funny how these two ended up on my October TBR with the same exact title, and they both have romance elements. This one's just like a fantasy and this one's just more of a contemporary romance. Update, I finished Powerless, and let me just say this is probably my favorite book in the entire series thus far, and I don't know if it's gonna be beat, honestly, just because it was so good. I gave it 5 stars. The pining, the tension, childhood friends to lovers is my favorite trope just because there's that emotional connection and depth from the beginning, honestly, just because they have known each other, been in each other's lives. Beautiful. I'm moving on. I'm currently reading Wayward. It's a hardcover. It's this book. I took off the jacket just because I don't want to deal with it. I actually started this last just dropped the book. I started this last night and I'm only 40 pages in. It's pretty interesting. Basically, there's like 3 different timelines, 3 different women. I think one's in 2019 and then one's in like the 1940s and the other one is like even further back in time. So it is historical fiction, bit of fantasy, bit of magical realism, and one of them is kind of accused of being a witch. One of them, she's the one in the 1940s who's like kind of jealous of her brother because like he gets to do more things. She's giving me, what's that character from Little Women, like the one that is like the main one? Joe? She's giving me Joe vibes. And then the third one in 2019, her perspective is she literally just left her like abusive husband. So they all have very different things that they're dealing with. And I think by the end of it, they're gonna kind of come together and like something's gonna result from this. Every chapter is one of their different perspectives. We'll just see how this book is. It's not too long, so I'm hoping to also finish it up soon. I'm gonna continue reading this and then I'll let you guys know my thoughts. I ended up DNFing Wayward, which I feel like can be kind of surprising because I'm not the type to DNF, but I am slowly teaching myself that it is okay to DNF, especially when you're just not enjoying a book. I was kind of debating, am I going into a book slump or is it the book? I couldn't really figure it out. Literally hit 50% through the book and I was like, I cannot read this anymore. Like I just am not interested. I don't care for the characters really, which is sad to say. It just was a little bit too literary fiction for me and was reminding me too much of a previous book that I had read in the past. So I was just like, I do not need to do this right now. I put it down and I picked up The Storied Life of AJ Fikry, which is also on my October TBR, and it's a very short book. I've heard lots of great things about this. I also wasn't sure if I was gonna love this or be super into it. This is my test to see if I am going into a book slump, and I'm happy to say that I'm actually really enjoying this book. It's like less than 300 pages and I'm already on page 90 and I started this last night. I'm actually falling in love with it. I really love the character of AJ Fikry, even though he's like this grumpy old bookstore owner. I literally think it's Gabrielle Zevin's writing that is really making me like this book. Overall, I feel like it's just a mundane life of a bookshop owner and he's the little grumpy old man and he has these kind of weird, crazy, also some tragic things that have happened to him. It's still entertaining and I think that's the author's work right there and her talent being showcased, that I'm actually like intrigued and entertained and very much enjoying this. I feel like it's a special little book that I cannot wait to see how it wraps up. I'm going to definitely finish this month. It'll be in my October wrap up, but I actually want to finish off this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will be finishing this and stay tuned for my October wrap up where you can see my final thoughts, but that is going to be it for now. So goodbye from me and my Jellycat biscuit, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.